The empress was taken out for execution. People said she cursed His Majesty. The girl apparently was blinded by love and jealousy and begged to kill him. The emperor was like the sun to the people, as well as to the empress herself. Before the execution, the young man asked his wife if she wanted to say something for the last time. She told His Majesty that she cursed him because he was a heartless, cold-blooded hypocrite. The girl added that she would make him pay for all his sins, even from the other world. When she asked her husband if he wanted to tell her something, the emperor gave the order to begin the execution of the empress. Then the girl wondered if the one in front of her whom she loved so much. Alexandra knew that if she got another chance she would become empress again. She will become the most noble woman in this country and take revenge on the emperor. Alexandra's life began to fall apart from the moment she married Cleo Guillaume von Rice. He was a loving husband and the third son of the emperor. The girl did everything in her power to bring him to the throne, not being afraid to stain her hands with blood or to give up her morals. Even her parents, the Marquis and Marquise Sieglinde, took responsibility for Cleo's crimes and were executed in his stead. Thanks to this, he was able to safely sit on the throne. Alexandra thought that he would love and cherish her for such sacrifices, but in fact the girl received the crown of the empress and numerous for her husband. The emperor's bedroom was always filled with other women, and she herself was accused of allegedly cursing His Majesty. Thus ended the life of a 26-year-old girl. The empress was awakened in the middle of the day by her maid Penny. The girl said that today is a very important day for them. Alexandra could not believe what she saw in front of her. She asked the girl why she was here, and she replied that she was her maid. Where else should she be? But the empress knew that she was dead. She was killed by robbers when she was 20. Alexandra touched her neck and thought that maybe this is the afterlife. Everything was so realistic around her, even the smell in her room. The empress asked Penelope how old she was. The girl was surprised that Her Majesty was asking this, because she herself had organized a coming-of-age ceremony for her 2 months ago. Then the ruler asked how old she was. The maid replied that she was 21 years old. Alexandra jumped out of bed and ran to the mirror. The girl realized that today is the same day that cannot be forgotten, her wedding. Alexandra saw herself in a wedding dress and asked Penelope if she understood correctly. Penny was surprised and asked Her Majesty if she was okay. The empress said that she just felt suddenly dizzy and asked the girl to leave the room for a while. When Penny left, Alexandra pinched her cheek hard to make sure it wasn't a dream. It meant she had another chance. God heard her prayers and now she had an opportunity to avenge her death on this scoundrel. That girl thought about what she should do. The wedding ceremony was about to start, so she understood that if she ran from here, then now was the only time. But before her death, Alexandra swore to herself that she would ascend the throne. Before her execution, she decided that she would once again become a noble empress and repay Cleo in full for all the suffering, pain, and humiliation she had to endure. Therefore, Alexandra decided that she would not run away, but would try to change her life so that Cleo would remain the head, not her. The empress called Penny over and asked how she looked. Penelope looked at Her Majesty and said that she was the most beautiful in the whole world. When another maid asked if they were ready, Sandra thought about it. The girl wondered if she could put on the mask and play her part, knowing who her future husband really was. Is she sure that he will remain the head, and not her? It seemed to her that now was a very good opportunity to run away and live a happy life with another man, forgetting about him. Is it possible to take revenge, but at the same time not being his wife? But Sandra still had the feeling of a cold blade cutting her neck, so she decided that she couldn't live without everything he had done to her and her family. At the wedding ceremony, everything was the same as on that day. Cleo stood next to the priest and told Alexandra that she was beautiful. She smiled and complimented him back. The priest asked if Alexandra Giovanna Jean Sieglinde agreed to marry Cleo Guillaume von Rice, to love him sincerely and to remain faithful to him through the years. The girl answered yes. When Cleo made his vow to love her and be faithful, Sandra wanted to scream that he was lying. She wanted God to punish him for what he had done to her. She believed that God should punish the fact that he betrayed his wife, who was so faithful to him, in a terrible and mean way. Therefore, Alexandra mentally swore to hate her husband. I swear that I will never love him again and show loyalty, but I will only curse and hate him, said the girl to herself, and they were declared husband and wife. They sealed their vows with a kiss and exchanged wedding rings. There was no way back and she could no longer escape. Before her death, Sandra swore to take revenge, and now, after the official ceremony, guests began to approach Alexandra and congratulate her. 2 girls came up to congratulate her and said that she was very lucky with her husband. The bride replied that she was very happy. Another lady asked if it was true that she proposed to the 3rd prince herself. Once Sandra really loved Cleo so much that she proposed to him, and now she thought she had been foolish not to have chosen another of his princely brothers. When he called her, the girl mentioned that the other ladies thought that Prince Cleo had a soft and charming voice. Alexandra told her husband that she was very happy to see him. Cleo invited his wife to dance with him, and Sandra agreed, adding that she would be happy to give him the dance. The girl decided that she had to play a role. To do this, she must reject all the destructive hatred that has engulfed her soul, and be a pure girl drowning in love for him. The prince asked if she was tired. Alexandra replied that she was happy with him, and asked how he was feeling. Cleo replied that he was happy when she was with him. The girl wondered if he was lying to her now. After all, they really had a happy time before. Sandra was upset, and Prince Cleo noticed it. She replied that she remembered her parents and that she would live far from them. The prince was surprised and said that her parents could visit the imperial palace whenever they wanted. He added that she would be able to visit them whenever she wanted. Alexandra told her husband that he was right. But the girl added that she likes living in the palace. After all, this place is majestic and beautiful, but at the time it hides a lot of poison. Prince Cleo promised his wife that he would take care of her. But Sandra already knew very well that he was the most terrible poison in the whole palace. The girl overcame her feelings and told Cleo that she trusted him. When the dance tune ended, the prince told his wife that he still had to talk to her parents, the Marquis and Marquise Sieglinde, and then they could rest. Cleo leaned over her and quietly told Lexi to wait for him in their new room at night. And then Alexandra remembered that their first wedding night would take place today. The prince kissed his wife on the forehead and left. Alexa didn't know what to do, because she didn't want to get close to this scoundrel, and his kisses made her sick. The girl decided that she urgently needed to invent something in order to avoid this closeness. After some thought, she called her maid Penny. She asked the girl if she was taking sleeping pills. Penelope said she was taking it because she had insomnia. Then the princess asked her to give her some sleeping pills. The maid knew that her mistress had no trouble sleeping, so she was a little surprised. Alexandra said that she has been feeling very tired lately. Penny promised to bring the sleeping pills just now and not tell anyone about it, as her mistress had asked. Sandra was a little reassured that it would be easier for her to get through this night. Suddenly behind her, the girl heard a very familiar voice. The man asked why she was alone and where Prince Cleo had gone, and then the woman spoke. Sandra came back and recognized her parents, who had been gone for a long time. She shouted, "Mom, Dad!" and rushed to hug them. The father told his daughter that she is now a princess, so she should not behave like that. But the girl said that she was very happy to see them. Sandra decided that she would not allow them to be sacrificed. Mom asked Lexi why she was acting so strange today. The girl replied that she missed them very much. Father reminded that they had already seen each other in the morning. He added that other people seeing them might think they haven't seen each other in a year. The Marquis asked his daughter if her husband had offended her in any way, or if he did not pay enough attention to her. Alexandra replied to her parents that she was fine and that her husband was taking care of her. She added that she can't do this anymore, so she wants to tell them something. The girl asked if they would always stay by her side. The mother said that of course they would. They were her parents. Dad said they couldn't betray their own daughter. Then Sandra asked her parents not to sacrifice themselves for her. They were very surprised by her words, and their mother asked why she was saying this. The woman asked her daughter to tell what happened to her. Alexandra wanted to tell that in the past they sacrificed themselves because of her, but she said that nothing happened. The girl told her parents that anything can happen in life, so she asks them to never sacrifice themselves for her if she doesn't want to. Father replied that her request was quite strange, but he and mother would listen to her. Alexa thanked her parents for their understanding and saw that Cleo was walking towards them. The Marquis and Marquise Sieglinde bowed and greeted His Highness Prince Cleo. The prince offered them to stay in the palace for a while. The Marquis thanked them for the invitation, but said they did not want to disturb the newlyweds. The father shook hands with the prince and asked him to take care of his daughter. Prince Cleo replied that their daughter was the most beautiful and wisest girl in the whole empire, and it was a great honor for him to marry her. Then the Marquis said that he could not have wished for more than to hear such pleasant words from him. The parents wished the young couple a happy married life. Cleo promised them to make their daughter the happiest woman in the empire, and Lexi promised her parents to do the same for her husband. The parents said goodbye to their daughter and left. The newlyweds were to meet His Majesty, the Emperor, Prince Cleo's father. Alexandra knew that she had to be very strong because her revenge was just beginning. When they were called to an audience with the Emperor and Empress, the girl bowed to the Emperor and said, "Eternal glory to the ruler of Reyes." The Emperor congratulated the princess and asked if she had had a lot of trouble preparing for the wedding. Alexandra thanked His Majesty for his concern. The Emperor then asked if she had any difficulties during the wedding ceremony. He added that he had heard that the girl was preparing for her in a special way. Sandra found it funny that the Emperor would say such things because, in truth, he never cared about his sons. Prince Cleo told his father that thanks to him, their ceremony went well. After that, the Emperor addressed Alexandra with the assumption that she would feel a little insecure in the palace for a while, because she was still quite young. Empress Thelsia, sitting next to the Emperor, laughed and reminded her that Alexandra was not so young, and added that she had become Empress when she was 3 years old. Sandra knew that Empress Thelsia was by no means an easy opponent, as she was a serious obstacle to Cleo becoming Emperor. It was like she had been following Alexandra from the beginning. She has her own son, the second prince, so she does not like the wife of the third prince. The girl thought that once she had already defeated her, but this does not mean that you can lose your vigilance. The princess told the Empress that she looked great. The bride added that today she was overcome with excitement from the fact that she had just become a princess, and Her Majesty at this age had already become the mother of all the inhabitants of the empire. Alexandra said that this caused her great respect for the Empress. In fact, she simply returned to the starting point of their relationship. Just like then, Alexia just needed to dispel all her doubts about her. Empress Thelsia said that she hoped that the girl would quickly get used to life in the palace. Thelsia added that the Empress would have control of the imperial palace, while Alexandra would have full control of the Gen Palace, where she would live with her husband. The Empress said that everything would work out for the girl, because she is the daughter of a prominent noble family. The princess bowed and asked for help with some questions. Alexandra added that she is not sure that she is ready for such an important role of a princess. She was also troubled by the misunderstanding of some points in managing subordinates. Therefore, she wanted to count on the recommendations of the Empress. Thelsia told the princess that she could ask her if she had any questions. Then the Empress said that it was impolite to delay the newlyweds and said goodbye to them. Prince Cleo thanked her for her concern. The newlyweds bowed and left. When they were a little further away, Cleo asked Lexa if the Empress's words had upset her. The girl replied that everything is fine, because Her Majesty did not mean anything bad. Alexandra added that in the position of the Empress, it is quite natural to keep everyone under control, especially since the issue of succession to the throne has not yet been resolved. The Emperor has a first son from Empress Vincentia, a second son from Empress Thelsia, and a third son, Cleo, from the deceased second Empress. Their mothers are also fighting for the place of successor, and Sandra threw herself into the very center of this circle of their desires. Cleo asked if he could protect her or survive himself. The girl replied that they should protect each other. The princess promised her husband to make him emperor. Lexi added that they must survive, and she thought to herself that this was necessary in order to take revenge on Cleo. She had long ago decided that she would put the blade to his neck in her moment of triumph. But for now, Sandra suggested her husband forget all his worries and go to Jen's palace. Cleo didn't mind because it was a pretty rough day for both of them, and Alexandra could start her revenge there. In the palace, the maids welcomed the new mistress. Gen Palace was once the home of the third prince and his family until the emperor's death. These maids faithfully served Alexandra until she achieved her goal. Cleo carefully asked his wife if she liked the palace. Lexi replied that she really liked him. However, she actually liked the palace a lot more than he did. She felt at home here. But despite his betrayal, the maids of this palace worked for Sandra until the very end, just as she once was for him. Alexandra smiled at her husband and invited him to go to her rooms in order to meet her later for the first wedding night. Cleo agreed and kissed her gently on the forehead. Before her return, the distance between their rooms had seemed very long to the girl, but now it had become too small. This made Sandra feel sick. Entering her room, Alexandra said that everything looked amazing. The maid said that she tried to do everything to her liking. But because they did not know each other, the servant decorated the room based on His Highness's words about what his bride liked. Alexandra thanked Elovan for the room. The maid was very surprised that the princess knew her name, because she had not yet had time to introduce herself to her. Sandra understood that she had spoken, and something had to be done. The princess replied that she heard Prince Cleo calling her. The maid believed and Sandra exhaled. She asked the servants to prepare her for the prince's visit. Elovan said they would prepare a bath for her first. Alexandra understood that for the servants she was just a young lady who was excited before the first wedding night. But they don't even guess what thoughts are swirling in her head. But this way she will be safe for a while. In this palace, to everyone else, she is an ordinary young lady. Alexandra did not have a child even after she became empress, and Cleo never dreamed of children. She believed that it was because of concern for her, or because of a lack of love. After she was dressed, the princess asked the maids to leave her alone so she could prepare for the prince's visit. The girl added a sleeping pill to a glass of wine. There was no going back now. The princess asked a servant to bring Prince Cleo to her. Sandra understood that she had to suffer a little and persevere for her revenge. Cleo asked his young wife if everything would really happen for her for the first time. The girl replied that it was. Then she suggested a drink of wine to start. Alexandra told the prince that she still could not believe that they had become husband and wife. She added that it was like a dream for her. In fact, it was a very bad dream and it will not be possible to wake up again. But Sandra had to play her part. Cleo replied that he also thought it couldn't be. The young man admitted that when she proposed to him, he could not believe that it was not a dream. The princess admitted that at that moment she was very worried. She added that she was very worried that His Highness would refuse her. Cleo replied that he would never dare refuse such a beautiful and intelligent girl like her. The prince admitted to his wife that it was a great happiness for him that she had chosen him. Sandra understood that for him, this is really good luck. And for her, the most terrible failure. After all, it was she who soiled her hands with blood, not he. Lexi did all the dirty work just for his confession of love for her. The girl pulled herself together and answered him. She said that she was also very happy that the most handsome man in the whole empire was now her husband. But Cleo reminded his wife that life in the imperial palace was not so peaceful. The young man said that sometimes there will be difficulties, but he will be able to protect her. The prince asked his wife if she trusted him. The girl replied that she trusts herself. That's how it was before. She trusted him with all her heart. He promised that he would protect her, that he would love her forever. But he betrayed her, and she did not understand why Cleo had changed so much over time. Alexandra said she believed him, and Cleo asked why she was crying. The girl realized that she could not stumble so senselessly. She decided she didn't need those feelings anymore. After drinking some wine, Cleo began kissing Lexi and pushed her onto the bed. Sandra was scared, but reassured herself that she had to wait a little and the effect of the sleeping pill would soon show itself. She kissed him back and thought that it would be over soon. Cleo kissed her neck and told her he loved her. Sandra once dreamed of those words, but now she didn't care. She was just wondering if he behaved so gently from a pure heart. She prayed that it would be over soon. When the prince fell asleep, the girl threw him off her with relief. Lexi took the blade and cut her leg specifically to smear blood on the sheet. Then, in the morning, the prince would believe that everything happened, but he simply does not remember after the wine. She held the blade in her hands and thought that she could easily kill him now. But the girl did not want to do this, because it would be a very easy death for him. In the morning, when the prince woke up, he said that he remembered only how he entered her, and everything else, as if in a fog. Sandra laughed and said she couldn't believe he didn't remember anything. Cleo apologized to his wife for drinking too much, and now he doesn't remember anything. The prince said that he loved her and held her close. Lexi didn't know if he was lying to her then. She wondered whether he had calculated everything so well from the beginning, or whether she had become uninteresting to him over time. But Sandra decided that it didn't matter. Whatever the truth, she has no intention of stopping her revenge. The girl said that it was time for them to get up to greet the emperor and empress. When Cleo noticed blood on the sheet, he asked his wife if he had hurt her. Lexi replied that he was very gentle and caring with her. Alexandra wanted her once very beloved husband to slowly but painfully take back all the things he had done to her, and she wasn't going to stop. In the imperial palace, everything was like this. Exquisitely beautiful-looking things behind their deceptive attractiveness hide sharp blades, distracting attention to master you. In the morning, the Empress asked the newlyweds if they had rested. Princess Alexandra bowed and said that she was able to rest well thanks to Her Majesty. The Empress replied that she was very pleased to hear it. It was Empress Vincentia, mother of the first prince. Sandra couldn't understand how she could look so kind. In her past life, Lexi believed her sweet smile and thought she was a good person. But now Empress Vincentia looked nothing more than a fake. The Emperor interrupted Alexandra's thoughts and said that he would probably hear good news soon, hinting at the children of the prince and princess. Empress Vincentia interrupted His Majesty. She asked her husband to take his time because the first and second princes were not even married yet. Alexandra smiled faintly. She was amused by the play of the Empress. Empress Telsia, sitting on the other side of the Emperor, asked Vincentia when the first prince was going to get married. Now he is 26 years old. If we take into account the fact that most nobles marry before the age of 20, then the first prince is already very late. Vincentia replied that she was worried that she would not see his wedding. Telsia asked if her daughter-in-law's ideals were too high. She added that the royal princess, like her mother, is very picky. Empress Vincentia, Duchess of Igalelska, and her mother was a princess of the kingdom of Laufez. Usually such a marriage is not problematic, but here in the Reyes Empire, where purity of blood is valued, mixed blood nobility is not welcome. For the queen, who from a young age felt a huge sense of inferiority about her background, the subject of motherhood was a very sensitive one. Empress Telsia, who stood one step higher in status, was not bothered by this. Vincentia replied that she would do everything possible for the prince to marry a beautiful and intelligent princess. Telsia then said that it would be wrong for the second prince to marry before the first. Surprised, Vincentia asked if he had a bride. Telsia replied that soon he would definitely find her. The Emperor interrupted their conversation and scolded them for having a showdown in front of the newlyweds. His Majesty told the prince that they could go on vacation, while he reminded the princess that she would need to adjust to life in the imperial palace. Alexandra thanked His Majesty for his concern, and thought to herself that they had not changed at all. She even felt a little uncomfortable. Cleo noticed that his wife was not feeling well and asked her if she was okay. He added that she should not pay attention to the father's conversations about the children. Sandra herself did not understand at that moment how the question to the prince escaped her, why he did not want her to have children. Cleo excitedly asked Lexi what was wrong with her. The young man replied that this is not true at all, and he is not against children. Sandra then explained that she would like to hear from him that he would put in a lot of effort to make it happen. Cleo replied that he considered raising a child to be a lot of work, so he didn't want to burden her like that. But if she wants a child so badly, he will do everything in his power. Lexi got even worse. Every time he was so kind to her, she felt a crushing pain in her chest, because she clearly remembers that day and his words that started her execution. And she clearly remembers the hatred she felt then. Prince Cleo apologized to his wife for upsetting her. Alexandra hugged him tightly and said that it was all her fault. The girl added that she was very tired, so she became more sensitive. She said that she was in no rush to have children, especially since they would still be able to enjoy each other during their honeymoon. Lexi told her husband that she was just worried, thinking he didn't want her to have children. But in fact, his answer will not change anything for her. Even if he wants children, it won't take away her hatred for him or fix his betrayal. Cleo replied that it was wrong because he wanted children like her. The young man added that he simply did not want to put such a responsibility on her shoulders. The prince said he loved her and hugged Lexi. The girl replied that she loves him too. In fact, with these confessions, he only angered her more. She hated him. On that day of execution, along with her life, her love for him disappeared forever. Despite the fact that they became husband and wife, the newlyweds spent very little time together. This was the rule at the imperial palace. For Sandra, it was what was needed. She asked her maid what Prince Cleo's plans were today. Elevin replied that he had a fencing lesson in the morning and a culture lesson in the evening. Thomas II did not dare to allow any of his sons to take part in public affairs. He did so in order to avoid unforeseen conflicts between them. After all, the heir to the throne has not been chosen yet. However, Thomas II saw to it that all his children received a good education so that the brothers would help the emperor. Everything would not be so bad if the princes were of the same origin. But they have different mothers who are at war with each other, so the desire of Thomas II is more like a utopia. Alexandra pondered what she would do if she were emperor. First of all, she would decide on a successor and the others would not receive an education. Of course, this sounds cruel, but it is the best way to strengthen the imperial power. She wondered what Thomas II was thinking about now. She asked what her plans were for today. Eleven replied that the princess could do whatever she wanted because today she was free. The maid added that they had received word that Lady Penelope would be arriving here from Marquise Sieglund. Sandra smiled and asked Elevine to explain everything to Penelope when she arrived, so that she would get used to the new place faster. She added that she is quite an intelligent girl. Alexandra decided that the first thing she should do is find someone who will share this path of revenge with her, from the beginning to the very end. And it had to be Penelope. Although Elevine was also a faithful maid of honor, they became friends much later. Knowing the future was Princess Alexandra's undoubted advantage over others. But still, not all that she experienced will be the same now. Her knowledge of the future and the actions she takes now can affect what will happen in the future. Elevine, the maid, knocked on the princess's room and informed her that Lady Penelope had arrived. She added that she had already finished her introductions and settled her in the servants' quarters. Alexandra told Elevine that she would like to have lunch with Penelope. The maid was surprised and wanted to say something, but the princess asked her to call Penny. She added that today is a special day, so it will only happen once. When the maid left, Sandra thought that she shouldn't underestimate the enemy she had killed in her past life. After all, her future is changing. Happy Penny entered the princess's room and greeted her according to all the rules of etiquette. Alexandra said that this is very unusual. The princess took the girl's hands and said that she was her best friend, and the only person she could trust. Sandra said that she has a lot of errands that only she can do. Penelope smiled and said that she did not know how she could be of use to Her Highness, but she would do what was necessary. Lexi wanted her loyal friend to help her get her revenge, but first, the princess fed the maid a delicious meal, and then said that she needed to learn as much as possible about all the distant relatives of the imperial family. Alexandra's goal was to make Cleo emperor and then betray him by becoming the reigning empress. What makes a person who has become an emperor feel the most terrible pain? She could answer this question based on her own experience. The crown that he will wear should be taken away from him, and his wife should put it on someone else. It will be the pain of renunciation and the pain of betrayal. He will not be able to survive this, as she once could not. And to achieve this, she needs someone who wants to become emperor. But this man will be faithful to her until the very end. Penelope was surprised and questioned whether she had heard correctly that she needed to learn about distant relatives of the imperial family. Alexandra explained to Penny that she needed to find out about men between the ages of 16 and 29. Also, they should not be married. Otherwise, it will increase the risk of someone finding out about them. And Sandra didn't want to risk it. Penelope said that she understood everything and promised to quickly compile the entire list of men. Also, the princess reminded Penny that it should be top secret. No one should know about it, not even her parents and husband. The maid was surprised but promised to remain silent. Penelope asked when it should be done. Alexandra answered that she needed it as soon as possible, as much as possible, as detailed as possible, and as confidential as possible. When Penny brought the princess a large mountain of papers, Sandra was very surprised. The maid said she had done Her Highness's task in as much detail as possible. The girl added that she herself did not expect that the imperial family was so big. Alexandra replied that she herself was surprised, and asked how she managed to do everything so quickly. Penelope said that she arranged all the men in order of consanguinity with Thomas II. The girl added that it took a little longer to do it secretly. The princess complimented the maid on a job well done, and began studying the papers as Penny left. She rejected several candidates immediately, because they did not suit her at all. One was not disciplined. He did not know how to care for other people at all. Sandra didn't understand how you could run an empire if you couldn't handle your territory. The other man was a pessimistic, indecisive mama's boy. Another was a pervert with a strange history with women. And another lost all his savings in gambling. Lexi couldn't believe that there were so few candidates left that suited her. This empire highly values the blood relationship of the rulers, so it could not be far away from Thomas II. She needed someone who could prove her abilities and competence, outweighing the blood relationship of the three consequences. Otherwise, he will not be able to suppress the opposition of the nobility. It already seemed to Alexandra that she would not find such a candidate. But suddenly, she saw the name Lakis Brio din Onrus, and remembered that he was also a member of the imperial family. Lakis Brio din Onrus is the person she buried in her past life. He is the second cousin of Thomas II and the nephew of the second Thomas I. In other words, Lakis is Cleo's great-uncle. Unlike his cousins, he ruled the borderlands and did not reside in the capital. The strangest thing was that nowadays it is not in the Duchy of Ornis in the south of the empire, but in the Duchy of Erneb, which is located in the northern part of the Reyes Empire. His reasons for choosing Erneb over the more convenient territory of Ornis were unknown, and opinions differed. Some believed it was loyalty to the empire and patriotism. Due to the fact that he had the blood of his father, the youngest cavalry commander, most people believed that he was trying to protect the empire from outside forces in this way. But Alexandra thought otherwise. Although she saw him only twice in her life, she saw in him the person who would do anything to achieve his goal. She saw the same look in his eyes as in hers. She thought for a moment that he was ready to bite her throat. He is the kind of person who will use any means and methods. Sandra read the information that Penny had prepared for her. Lakis Brio din Onrus, 26 years old, Duke of Ornis and Count of Erneb. His father died in the war when Lakis was still in his mother's womb. Born without a father, from an early age he achieved good results in fencing. Possessing a brilliant mind, he inherited the command of House Ornis from his parents at the age of 14. And now he lives in Erneb County, holding his breath. Alexandra knew that this was not the life he dreamed of. The moment she saw his eyes, she knew that this was not the look of someone who would just protect the border. Then she realized that he was dangerous. He was the kind of person who would definitely return to the imperial palace one day and seize the throne. Such was her assessment of him in a past life. That is why she killed him. But now the situation has changed. First of all, she doesn't love Cleo the way she used to. Secondly, she needs an ambitious and intelligent ally. If her assessment of Lakis turns out to be correct, then he will not refuse to cooperate. But then there is only one question: whether she will be able to take his life as successfully as before. Sandra still clearly remembered how much effort she had put into killing him. They searched for his weak points for a very long time, continuously searched for people from his environment, and they also spread rumors and sowed doubts about him in society. All this had a gradually increasing effect, and in the end Lakis was executed for treason. This man died innocent of anything. That's how difficult it was to deal with him. Because of his abilities and ambitions, Lexi knew that she shouldn't make him her enemy this time. Of course, there is no guarantee that the young man will agree to her proposal, but if she receives a refusal, she will have to get rid of him urgently so that no one finds out about her plans. Now that she has found a man who can help her, the princess has another problem: how to meet him. Sandra did not know under what pretext she could contact him. She had no excuses why she needed to meet Cleo's great-uncle. The distance between them was very large, so she could not go without an escort. Sending personal letters with a written text is also dangerous. This meant that you had to meet him in person. Alexa still did not understand how this could be done. Lakis even visits his own territory, the Duchy of Ornis, only twice a year. He has no reason to visit the imperial capital with which he has no connection, and there is no mention of the imperial palace. While Alexandra was thinking, there was a knock on her room and she was told that Lady Denalis had arrived and wanted to see Her Highness. Sandra well understood that she was given the opportunity to return. Nothing more than an incomprehensible privilege to correct the mistakes of the past. Therefore, she decided to take advantage of it. Lady Denalis della El Linuas of House Linuas greeted Princess Alexandra, and according to the greeting rules of the Reyes Empire said, "Eternal glory to the ruler of Reyes." The girl added that she had long dreamed of meeting Her Highness. Alexandra greeted Lady Denalis and reminded her that she was not very fond of such greetings. Denalis was the legitimate eldest daughter of Count Lenoy. Sandra didn't see her often, but they always talked at social events in a past life. Lady Denalis replied that the first greeting was very important, and if Her Highness thinks so now, it does not mean that she will not change her mind later. Lexi liked this girl. She liked her attitude towards people. The way she tries to be polite to other people until the very end. How she maintains the required distance. At the same time, she maintains closeness and diligently blocks what could ignite a quarrel. Princess Alexandra told the girl that she could say hello as she pleased. Lady Denalis thanked the princess and said she greatly appreciated her concern. Then the girl presented Her Highness with a wedding gift. When Sandra opened the box, she was very surprised. It was a service with rats painted on it. Denalis explained that in the Belzian kingdom, objects with the image of rats symbolize happiness and home comfort. The girl said that she knew that others would give Her Highness precious jewelry and dresses, and she wanted to prepare something unusual and special for her. Denalis added that she could bring something else if the princess didn't like it. Alexandra answered that she likes it, and added that it will be etched in her memory. Her Highness told the girl that a person's authority and reputation depended on their actions, and Lady Denalis had them impeccable. The girl thanked the princess for such kind words. Lady Denalis said that Her Highness was overestimating her abilities. Then Alexandra said that she would like to have a person like her by her side. Sandra knew that taking care of valuable people is the way to success. The girl asked in surprise if this meant that Her Highness was offering to be her maid of honor. Before her reincarnation, Alexandra didn't make Lady Denalis her maid of honor, not because she didn't like her, but because Lexi didn't trust people. And now the girl has become different. Previously, she thought that Mileta and Penelope, who left her early, were the only ones who could turn her from the wrong path. But if she had Denalis as a maid of honor then, she would have warned her against being too dreamy, and warned Sandra to come to her senses and look at things more carefully. Although she is quiet, she is a serious girl with a strong will. In addition, people close to power sometimes need someone to give them even an unpleasant warning. Last time Alexandra realized this too late. That's why she needed her now. The one who will not allow you to deviate from the right path and destroy yourself. The girl was so surprised that she asked why she should become Her Highness's maid of honor. Because there are many sincere and strong ladies in the empire who are more worthy. The princess replied that this is why she is worthy, because she is the only one who asks such questions, and smiled. Alexandra added that besides, she is still the only one she knows. Her Highness added that she could not entrust this important role to a person whom she did not know at all, because she would feel uncomfortable entrusting her with her personal freedom. Alexandra told Lady Denalis that she had time to think. The girl answered the princess that she could not make this decision without consulting her parents. Denalis asked if she could come back later and give her answer. Her Highness said she would look forward to seeing her in this room. Before Sandra had time to rest, she was visited by sisters Candace and Candida, 2 daughters of the Earl of Essex. They congratulated Her Highness on her wedding and on her becoming an imperial princess. Alexandra knew that the Essex sisters were chatty gossips and very frivolous. When she opened their gift, she was once again convinced that they were not very smart. The princess asked what it was, and the girls said that this is the most popular underwear in the capital. Sandra did not understand for what purpose they presented her with such a gift. She would still understand if it was from a close friend, but now they are having their first social meeting. Lexi decided that they were terribly ill-mannered ladies. Alexandra still thanked them for the gift, and the lady asked to drink tea with her, which again greatly surprised the princess. She wanted them to go home soon. During tea, the sisters chatted constantly and asked many questions. For example, how is her life in the imperial palace? Alexandra replied that she really likes it here. The princess then said that their royal highnesses are polite and kind people, so she hopes to settle down quickly in the future. The sisters were satisfied with such an answer. Then, realizing that they would learn nothing more, they began to tell the princess rumors. In this way, Alexandra found out that Countess Jenska was bankrupt. This countess always spent a lot of money on balls and delicious food. It all got to the point where she became addicted to gambling, lost everything, and became bankrupt. As they began to discuss the countess selling off her lands, Sandra realized that she could buy them. These were very beautiful lands located close to the imperial capital. The lands have good transport links with the imperial palace. The climate in those lands is mild, and in general the place is good for farming and ordinary life. Alexandra's thoughts were interrupted by the sisters' question whether she needed maids of honor. Sandra asked again out of surprise, and they said that she needed maids of honor so that she wouldn't get bored in Jen's palace. The princess replied that she was only here for one day, so she hadn't thought about it yet. The sisters were asked to let them know if she decided she needed maids of honor. Sandra decided that she would not call them, even if she was dying of boredom. She would not like to see such people around her, not to mention that they are very frivolous. After the sisters left, Lexi continued to think about how to meet Lakis. The territory of Erneb County is in the north of the empire. It snows there almost every day throughout the year. There are terrible blizzards and piercing winds that howl at all hours of the day and night. And the locals produce alcoholic beverages with an alcohol content of more than 40%. The only thing that thrived in these harsh conditions was military power. Erneb's knights train beyond their limits. That is why there were never border skirmishes in this part of the empire. Erneb's cavalry commander, Lionel Raderman, asked his knights who else wanted to try to defeat him in battle. Suddenly, His Highness approached them and asked if he could try it. Lionel asked the Duke if he was busy. Lakis replied that he could not assume a regular attestation of knights, which takes place once a month. Commander Lionel asked if His Highness was really going to fight him. The Duke asked if he had any doubts. Lionel added that he would not give in to him. Lakis replied that he did not ask for it, but on the contrary, he only wanted to fight at full strength. And he added that if he did something by surrendering, he would resign from the post of cavalry commander. Lionel replied that he had no intention of doing so and began to fight. Lakis found his weak point and quickly defeated the commander. The knights could not believe it. The commander told His Highness that he was very ashamed of himself. The Duke reassured him and said that he fought well and had already improved his skills a lot. Lionel added that he already knew it was a lie, that His Highness sat in his office all day and did not exercise. Lakis replied that he didn't need to exercise every day. Commander Lionel asked His Highness to remove the sword from his neck, because it was not very comfortable to communicate. The young man added that there was no such swordsman who could defeat His Highness. Duke Lakis agreed with the words of the cavalry commander Erneb, and added that there was no man in the entire empire who could beat him in swordsmanship. So Sir Lionel deserves credit for being able to hold his own against him at least a little. The Duke told the commander that he was an excellent swordsman. That is why His Highness asked not to quarrel with the knights because they could not defeat him. Herzog said that this approach demotivates cavalry knights. Lakis added that time will tell, but there is no one in this order right now who can defeat their commander. Lionel replied that if a genius appeared, he would not stand a chance. Suddenly an assistant, Sir Kate, ran to His Highness. Taking a breath, he informed the Duke that the Earls had done it. Lakis understood what he was talking about and told him to tell everything on the road. As they moved away from the knights, Sir Kate announced that he had received word from the capital. Thus, he realized that the gamblers lurking around the Countess Jenska had done their job. Having lost all his property and being on the verge of bankruptcy, the Count put his territories up for sale. Lakis asked what the price was. Keith replied that the price of the territories was 10 million gold. Duke Lakis said that it looked like she was in a very difficult position and smiled. One of the best territories of the empire were the lands of Count Jensky. No matter how large the territory of the empire was, there were not so many lands suitable for agriculture, combining a pleasant climate and fertile soil. Moreover, the proximity to the imperial capital allows the owner of these lands to play the role of a court aristocrat. Therefore, without a doubt, this is a very valuable territory. The price was very low for these lands, so Lakis instructed his assistant to buy these territories, as they had previously agreed. He asked to do it as soon as possible and in secret. Duke Lakis added that under no circumstances should they look suspicious. Sir Kate replied that he knew about it, because they had been preparing for it for so long. 6 months ago, Lakis was told that he would not be able to get the lands of Count Jensky. After all, he is alive and well. He has adult sons. Counts told him to buy other lands. Then the Duke said that there were no lands that could compare with these, especially since he needs the title of Count of Jensky even more than this territory. While the Earls were thinking about how to put His Highness's plan into action, Sir Keith came up with a great idea. This was the only way to force Count Jensky to give up his lands on his own. It was bankruptcy. Therefore, they bribed people close to the Count to invite him to gamble and encourage the Countess to buy luxury items. Gambling and extravagance are those things that you cannot give up after trying them just once. Therefore, Duke Lakis liked this plan very much. Lakis asked Keith how things were going in the Imperial Palace. The assistant replied that there were no major changes, but he said that the third prince got married. Kate said she didn't think it was the most important information, Because Prince Cleo is the person who is the furthest from inheriting the imperial throne. Duke Lakis replied that sometimes information that seemed unnecessary could work to their advantage. Therefore, it should not be treated lightly. Lady Denalis of House Linuas arrived at Gen Palace and accepted Princess Alexandra's proposal. Sandra decided that she had made the right choice of maid of honor. The girl informed the princess that the lands of Count Gensky had already been bought. Alexandra was surprised that it had happened so quickly, and asked if she knew who had bought them. 10 million gold was a very small price for these lands, but it was a lot of money. Not every aristocratic family could collect such an amount so quickly. Denalis said that Count Erneba's territories were bought by Count Erneba, His Highness the Duke of Ornis. Alexandra asked the girl if it was true. Lady Denalis replied that there could be no mistake. Sandra knew that in a past life Lakis had also bought these lands, but it was too early to rejoice, because not all events would be repeated. She wanted him to be on her side, but she was afraid the opposite would happen. Princess Alexandra asked her lady-in-waiting if she did not think it strange that Count Gensky was bankrupt. Denalis replied that she didn't know him well, but he didn't seem to be a gambler before. Therefore, it seemed strange to her that he so suddenly became interested in gambling. Sandra said that gambling has been around for a long time, but it is not very popular in the capital. She added that you don't need any reason to fall in love with them. You can become addicted to these games by accident. Afterwards, Princess Alexandra asked Lady Denalis if it could all have been planned. The girl got scared after hearing about the conspiracy. The princess assumed that someone had deliberately addicted the earl to gambling, and the countess to buying luxury goods, thereby creating this bankruptcy situation. Lady Denalis asked Her Highness in surprise if such a thing could be. Princess Alexandra said that the merchant ship in which Count Gensky invested his money was damaged by a storm. The entire cargo of the ship sank to the bottom of the sea, and the damage was catastrophic. Denalis said she too had heard of this horrific incident. Alexandra continued. The Count did not want to admit that he had lost more than he had invested, and wanted to make up for what he had lost. He was also worried that his wife might leave him. The fact that he lost a lot of money during the storm hurt the Count's heart, and the only way to make big money fast and heal a wound in the heart is gambling. Lady Denalis agreed with Princess Alexandra. Sandra added that people who failed once will try their best to avoid it the next time, but sometimes they cannot make a rational decision, and the obsessive desire not to fail this time makes their judgments inadequate. After listening to the princess, Lady Denalis asked who would do such a thing to Count Gensky and why. She assumed that Her Highness suspected someone of this. Alexandra answered that in order to find out the answer to this question, they had to meet with the one who wanted more than anyone else to get the lands of Count Gensky. Sir Kate informed Duke Lakis that the residence of the Earl of Gensky was undergoing renovations and a major renovation, and all the servants in the estate have also been changed. Maid Elovan asked Her Highness what necklace she would like to wear with the dress, and offered her a choice of gemstones. Alexandra told the maid that today she is going to the ball minimally dressed so as not to catch the eyes of others. The princess added that you should dress moderately, showing your taste. A natural rivalry arose in the imperial family for the place of the heir. The two main characters are the first Prince Jeremy and the second Prince Janaska. The third prince, Cleo, who is relatively weak in terms of power and has lost his mother, is unable to take advantage of the situation. People should continue to think like this. They are not interested in the question of succession to the throne. They prefer to be satisfied with the situation that has been prepared for them. They have to play this image. When the princess was ready for the ball, Elavine asked if Her Highness had heard that the Duke of Ornis would be at the ball tonight. Sandra was very surprised. Elavine said that she had heard that after acquiring the lands of the Count of Gensky, the Duke had written a letter to the Imperial Court Department. The meeting with Lakis in Alexandra's past life was not today, and she found out about him much later. But now things were going the way she needed. The maid informed the princess that the prince had come to her. Alexandra invited him to her room. Cleo congratulated his wife and said that she was incredibly beautiful. The young man added that Lexi is dressed more modestly today than she usually dresses for the ball. The girl replied that now she became a member of the imperial family. Therefore, she decided to reduce such extravagances to a minimum. After all, people will not think well of her when they see a lot of money on her. After listening to his wife, Cleo hugged her and said that she looked very beautiful in any clothes, because she is the kind of person who radiates light with her mere presence. The prince asked his wife for permission to accompany her, and they went to the ball. Alexandra asked if there really would be a lot of nobles at the ball today. Cleo confirmed that it was and asked if she was worried about it. Lexi replied that she was not worried at all because everything was the same as last year. Only she is now his wife, not his bride. Alexandra then added that a few days before, she had given Her Majesty a popular dress for her wedding anniversary. Cleo apologized to his wife for making her choose the gift herself, when in fact he should have done it. Sandra thought that this was somehow absurd. She asked her husband why he was apologizing, because the inner palace is her concern. The girl did not understand why he was apologizing for such nonsense. When he betrayed her in the last moments of her life, Cleo wasn't even going to ask her forgiveness for anything. It seemed to her that she hated him even more now. Duke Lakis Ornuski congratulated His Majesty. "Great son of the Empire and father of the entire imperial people, I greet your Majesty. Eternal glory to the ruler of Reyes." The Emperor greeted the Duke and asked how long they had not seen each other. The ruler added that Lakis was so seldom at balls that he had already forgotten his face. The Duke apologized to His Majesty for making him miss him. He added that all the time he was busy managing the territories and protecting the borders. The Emperor said that he was very grateful to him for the work done. The man added that earlier the palace received reports about unpleasant situations on the border. But since he moved to Erneb, such reports stopped. The Duke smiled and replied that he was trying for the Empire. Lakis then asked Her Majesty Empress Telsia how she was doing. The Empress replied that it was the same, minding her own business and supporting His Majesty. Duke Lakis asked if she had received the gift he sent her in advance for their wedding anniversary. Telsia replied that she had received nothing. Lakis then said he would send something else for her. Telsia remained silent, and the Emperor asked the Duke if it was true that he had bought the lands of the Count of Jensky. The young man replied that Count Jensky was so addicted to gambling that he lost all his fortune. Therefore, in fact, he saved him from bankruptcy. Lakis added that it would be very unpleasant for the imperial family if these important lands fell into the hands of a stranger, so he bought them. The Emperor asked the Duke why he should take the opportunity and not join the council. Lakis replied that he wasn't sure he could, because he wasn't very competent at it. His Majesty reminded the Duke that he owned 2 territories, so he simply needed to be a member of the council. The Emperor asked again if he wanted to join. Lakis replied that it was a very important question, so he needed time to think it over. The young man decided to specifically take a step back now in order to jump later. Prince Cleo and Princess Alexandra approached the Emperor and Empress. They greeted His Majesty and Her Majesty, Empress Thelsia. Duke Lakis looked at Princess Alexandra, and the Emperor introduced her to him as his daughter-in-law, the only daughter of Marquis Sieglinde, who had recently married the 3rd Prince Cleo. Thus, it was his cousin's wife. She seemed a gentle and innocent beauty, but he felt something cold about her. Lakis decided to be careful with her. He greeted Her Highness and gave his full name. Alexandra said that it was a great honor for her to get to know His Highness better, because she had heard a lot about him. Sandra saw the same look he had then. The girl said that she had heard that the Duke was stationed in the territory of Jensky County, and since the county is close to the capital, she hopes that they will be able to see each other more often in the future. Lakis replied that he would do everything in his power to make it so. Princess Alexandra bowed before Empress Thelsia and greeted Her Majesty. Then she said that the Empress today is incredibly beautiful in this dress. Thelsia thanked the princess for the compliments and the gift. She added that the dress was so beautiful that she couldn't even look at the others, which is why she chose it for the ball. Sandra knew it would be like this. She deliberately gave the Empress a dress that would become her favorite. This is an exact copy of the dress that the Emperor was to give her only a year later. She repeated the design of the dress that she loved until her death. The princess replied to the Empress that she was very glad that she liked it. Thelsia said they could go enjoy the ball. When the newlyweds had gone, Duke Lakis asked His Majesty how they were married. The Emperor replied to the Duke that he did not understand his question. The Duke asked if His Majesty had sent a letter from the Imperial Palace to Marquis Sieglinde's residence in order to proceed with the engagement. Was it decided at the council meeting that they should get married? The Emperor smiled and replied that they simply fell in love and got married. Then His Majesty told that the girl fell so in love that she herself asked Cleo to marry her. The Emperor agreed, because there were no problems with her origin. And Princess Alexandra in herself is a beautiful young girl. Lacus told His Majesty that he understood everything and had no more questions, so he would not bother him anymore. As soon as Duke Lacus opened the door to go outside for some fresh air, Princess Alexandra ran into him and spilled her wine on his tailcoat. The girl was very apologetic, and the Duke said that everything was fine and nothing terrible had happened. But Princess Alexandra persuaded him to go with her to Jen's palace in order to clean his tailcoat. At Jen's palace, the maid took the Duke's tailcoat to be cleaned. The Duke and Princess were silent for a long time during tea. Lacus asked why they were sitting in complete silence. Alexandra replied that she was thinking how to start the conversation. She added that she would stop worrying so much and start talking if he promised to be honest with her. Lacus said she was saying it like she didn't trust him. Then the girl asked if he trusted her. The Duke replied that he would not be here if he did not trust her. Then the girl asked directly if he did it on purpose. The young man asked what exactly he had done. The princess said that he had bought the lands of Count Jensky. Herzog replied that it was, and he did not understand what the question was. Princess Alexandra explained that she believed that he deliberately did everything to bankrupt Count Jensky. Sandra added that the Earl really liked his territories and he would not sell them for anything in his life, even if he went mad. And even if I did sell it, it wouldn't be for such pennies as it is now. Therefore, Alexandra believed that everything was very well planned in advance. There was only one way to force the Count to give up his land without violence: bankruptcy. The princess told the Duke that he had bribed the people around the Earl, and they had made him addicted to gambling. And then everything happened as he expected. Duke Lacus replied that the princess had a talent for writing, so she could write books under a pseudonym if she was worried about her reputation as an imperial princess. Alexandra smiled and answered that sometimes reality itself is very similar to some good novel. Then the Duke asked what she wanted and why she was so sure of her words. The girl replied that she understood everything from his reaction to these accusations. She added that she found it very strange that he bought land for a large amount of money so quickly. Herzog replied that she herself knew that everyone would like to get these lands. The princess replied that it was so, but the main reason for her suspicions was that he had bought them. The young man said that she did not know him well enough to say that he was such a bad person. The girl replied that she knew much more about him than he knew about her. Duke Lacus asked the princess what the purpose of this conversation was. Then the girl directly asked if the Duke wanted to get the throne and become emperor. Lacus was outraged and said that her assumptions were extremely disrespectful. Princess Alexandra continued. She said that she had thought for a long time about why he needed this earldom and his title, and she also did not understand why he immediately moved to the residence, although they spent so much time far from their native territory. And while she was thinking, she came up with the following theory. Jensky County was involved in the political movement of the empire for a long time. In Erneb, where he rules, military power is well developed, with many soldiers who can fight in any conditions. On the other hand is Ornis, which his parents gave him, which has such fertile soil that you can feed your people and army, and still have some left for sale. The princess assumed that he had economic and military power, but only political power was lacking. But he did not even try to participate in politics. Therefore, no one would think that he was up to something. The Duke replied that she would become a traitor to the empire if she continued this conversation. The girl asked if she was right. Alexandra told the Duke that she was confident in her words and was not afraid to risk her life. Lacus then asked what she wanted. The princess offered the Duke cooperation, after which she would make him emperor. Lacus was very surprised and reminded the girl that she was already married to the third Prince Cleo. Then the girl admitted that she wanted to do it because of revenge on her husband. After all, it is he who wants to kill his brothers and father in order to seize the throne and become emperor. Duke Lacus asked if she wanted to work with him to get revenge on her husband, and then go with him to the depths of hell. Alexandra said that she is not going to fall to the bottom of hell with her husband. She explained that she wanted to make him emperor first, and then she will take the crown from him and put it on her new husband. Sandra thought that this was a good revenge, because he would fall from the very top into hell itself. Duke Lacus listened to her carefully, and said that she had made a huge mistake by telling him all her plans. The princess replied that she understood the risk she was taking, but she also understands that after going through this door, he will not go to the emperor with this information. After all, first of all, he has no evidence that this conversation took place. Secondly, the emperor is already looking at him with suspicion regarding the purchase of these lands, so the duke will not pretend like that. Lacus told the girl that she knew him really well. Herzog asked why she was so sure he would want to work with her. Alexandra said that he could leave this room, take his tailcoat to the maids and pretend that this conversation had not happened. But leaving this place, he will become her enemy. She added that she would not be able to leave alive a person who knows about her true intentions. Lycus asked the princess if she wanted to scare him. The girl replied that it should work, because she knows him much better than he knows her. She also knows that among the nobility there are many people who will take her side. Therefore, the princess gave the duke 5 minutes to decide whether to become her enemy or ally. She reminded that soon everyone will notice their absence. Duke Lacus asked the princess for permission to ask her one last question. Why him? Alexandra replied that there are other people on her side, but he will be much more useful. If he takes her side, they will be invincible. And if he chooses to become her rival, it will be very unpleasant for her, because she is in awe of his abilities. And Sandra also said that she thinks his ambitious heart, which he tries so hard to hide, is very valuable. Lacus realized that the girl knew more about him than he did. When he saw her for the first time, he thought he could latch on to her, and now she did it to him. The princess told the duke that 5 minutes had already passed. Lacus got up from his seat and walked over to her. The duke said, "Yours truly, Alexandra Giovanna Jean Reyes. I look forward to working with you." The young man shook hands with the princess and kissed her. Alexandra answered, "With pleasure." Lacus smiled and asked what her husband had done to deserve her wrath. The girl was about to answer when the maid informed her that Prince Cleo had arrived at the palace and was looking for her highness. Sandra was a little confused, and Lacus sat down in his seat and took the cup in his hands. He reassured the girl and told the maid that the prince could enter. When His Highness entered the room, he was very surprised to see the Duke of Ornis with his wife. The Duke politely invited the prince to join them for tea. Cleo asked the young man what brought him here. Lacus said that the princess accidentally spilled wine on him. The man added that he refused for a long time and wanted to go home like this, but his wife persuaded him to come here and clean his tailcoat. Alexandra confirmed the Duke's words. She said she wasn't paying attention, so she bumped into the Duke and poured her wine over him. The princess said she wanted to make amends and clean the tailcoat. The girl asked the man if he was angry because of this. Cleo replied that everything was fine, and Lacus said that it was time for him to go home. When the Duke had left, Prince Cleo asked his wife if anything untoward had happened during her conversation with the Duke. Alexandra replied that he seems to be a good person. The prince was surprised and said that he did not think so because he had failed to make a good impression. The girl understood that his instincts were not lying. Lexi felt the same way when she first met him, but she told Cleo that he seemed kind and intelligent to her, and even complimented the prince. Cleo admitted that he was very scared when he could not find her at the ball. He was glad he had thought to come here and check out her rooms. Lexi apologized to her husband. She said she was tired and decided to rest for a while in her room, then accidentally spilled some wine. The prince said that now everything is fine and kissed her gently on the lips. Lexi looked into Cleo's eyes and remembered how she had loved him before she passed out. Back then, she wanted him to be hers only, but now everything has changed. Cleo told Lexi that he really wanted to give in to his emotions and put her on the bed. But due to the fact that she is not feeling well and has come here to rest, he cannot afford it. The princess replied that they would still have time for it. Cleo told his wife that she was right. The young man hugged her and said he would visit her later in her rooms. When Prince Cleo returned to the ball, the emperor asked him where Princess Alexandra was. The prince replied that she was not feeling well, so he was escorting her to Jen's palace. Empress Telsia, sitting next to the emperor, said that this was very irresponsible of her. After all, she left their wedding anniversary without saying goodbye. Cleo replied that she must have been overworked while looking for a dress for Her Majesty to give as a gift. His Majesty asked his wife to calm down and not judge the princess. Then the empress turned to her son. She asked the prince if he liked any of the girls enough to marry. The prince replied that he was only 24 years old, so now it was the first prince's turn. Telsia told her son that the third prince was already married. The young man replied that he would not want a wife like his, so he would find a calm and balanced girl. Prince Cleo was indignant, and his brother asked him if he was not right. Empress Vincentia said that she would go to great lengths to find a suitable bride for the first prince. During these arguments, Duke Lacus approached the emperor. He said that he wanted to say goodbye, but he sees that it is not in time. His Majesty said that he was a member of their family, so it could not be untimely. Lacus thanked the emperor for such words, and said that it was time for him to go. The emperor suggested that he stay and rest in the palace, and the duke said that he had a lot of work to do. Then His Majesty said that he dared not detain him, and asked him to think over his proposal. He added that he would expect a positive response in the near future. When Duke Lacus returned to his palace, Kate's assistant asked him if there was anything interesting at the ball. The young man replied that there was something very interesting, but he would tell about everything in the morning. In the morning, Kate knocked on the Duke's room. The Duke let him into the room and said that he had thought long and hard about how to tell him about what happened yesterday at the ball. Lacus began by dismissing all the servants on the estate. Kate was worried and asked why the Duke had taken such a step. Herzog replied that he had found an accomplice at the ball yesterday. The young man asked why he did it. Lacus replied that everything had already been decided. Sir Kate was indignant that the Duke had done this without consulting him. When Lacus told him everything Princess Alexandra had told him, Kate asked if she could be a spy. Herzog replied that he did not think so. He said that she knew everything about how they planned and carried out the purchase of Count Jensky's lands. Kate asked if his plans were flawless. Lacus replied that it's just that Princess Alexandra is very smart. He added that the Empress and the Emperor certainly did not suspect anything. Otherwise, he would have seen. The Duke said that he and the Princess have common interests, and that she is very intelligent, so she would make a good partner. Kate reminded that her thoughts would have to be taken into account. The first emperor was a very intelligent man. He created such a tradition that members of the imperial family living on the territory of the palace would have breakfast together. His Majesty asked Princess Alexandra how she was, because he had heard yesterday that she had been unwell. The princess thanked for the concern. She also apologized for making His Majesty worry. The emperor said she could rest whenever she wanted if she was unwell. Empress Telsia once again thanked the girl for the gift, and asked her not to burden herself so much. Her Majesty assumed that the princess was tired while choosing a dress. Alexandra replied that she was very glad that Her Majesty liked her gift. The girl decided to behave calmly and not stand out. She knew that she would only be able to draw her sword when the Empress or Empress consort were overthrown. Empress Telsia asked the emperor if it was time for the second prince to get married. Telsia said that yesterday at the ball she liked a girl who fits the role of an imperial princess. She added, "This girl is so suitable that we must hurry with the wedding." Empress Telsia then turned to Empress consort Vincentia and asked if she would mind the second prince outdoing his brother and marrying the first. But the emperor did not like this idea. He said it was against etiquette for the second prince to marry before the first. His Majesty asked if this girl would not be suitable for the first prince. Empress Telsia was shocked by His Majesty's proposal, and Princess Vincentia coughed. Then blood came out of her mouth and she fell to the floor. The doctor reassured the first prince and said that his mother would be fine, but added that it looked a lot like poisoning. The emperor asked how this could happen. The first prince asked his father to do everything possible to find the person who did this. His Majesty replied that he would definitely find the one who tried to poison his wife. Empress Telsia ordered the maid to clean everything very carefully and to wash away every blood stain. She also told everyone that they should go to their rooms. When everyone had left, the second prince asked his mother if she hadn't done it. The empress shouted at her son and reminded him to watch his tongue. The mother added that she did not do this. The prince said that he simply assumed and asked who else could do such a thing but her. The woman replied that many could do it. For example, the emperor himself, or the third prince with his wife. She said that no matter who did it, there would be very serious consequences. Prince Cleo saw that Alexandra had no face from what she had seen. He asked his wife who she thought could do such a thing to Her Majesty. Sandra did not understand why this happened. This was not the case in her past life at this stage. The day after the ball, they had the same breakfast, but without poisoning. After breakfast, Empress Vincentia calmly returned to her rooms. But here everything happened differently. Alexandra pondered what had so strongly influenced the events. She was a little scared that all the events she knew would happen in a different order. Cleo carefully hugged his wife and offered her some rest. The emperor was shocked by what happened. He understood that if the empress consort had taken a little more of the poisonous food, then it would have been impossible to save her. His Majesty pondered over who could be entrusted with the investigation of this case. Almost all the aristocrats of the imperial palace became entangled in disputes for power. Also, he could not entrust this matter to a person from a lower society, because it would disgrace the reputation of the imperial family. Suddenly, there was a knock at his office and a letter was brought. It was a letter from the Duke of Ornis from the county of Gensky. The emperor smiled and ordered Duke Lacus to be brought to him in the imperial palace urgently. Alexandra understood that at first everything was the same as in her past life, but getting to know the Duke of Ornis earlier than necessary, she gave birth to a different sequence of events. If she had followed what happened in the past, she would have met him much later. And also, in her past life, Sandra was not going to cooperate with Duke Lacus. With such a turn of events, it was clear to the girl that she would no longer be able to rely on her memories. Instead, she will build her new life. And in this life, she will definitely bring Cleo's revenge to the end. Sandra understood that the Duke of Ornis became her ally only because their interests coincided. Maid Elevin knocked on the door of Princess Alexandra's chambers and brought her cookies that she had made herself. The girl was surprised and asked why she decided to make cookies. Elevin answered, worried that the princess had not had a good breakfast. When Sandra took the cookies, the maid said that she had just seen the Duke of Ornis at the palace. The girl was surprised, and the servant said that His Highness would now participate in the central politics of the empire. Alexandra understood that he was trying to do this by buying the neighboring county. Sandra guessed that he was currently meeting with the emperor. She decided that today she would definitely have to talk to the Duke of Ornis. His Majesty thanked the Duke of Lacys for coming so quickly. He said that recent events had helped him realize that there were no people in the palace whom he could trust. Duke Ornis asked the emperor what had happened and added that he did not understand anything. The emperor replied that it was a good thing that the rumors had not yet spread across the empire. He told that the empress consort was poisoned and someone was trying to kill her. Lacus asked if she was okay now. His Majesty said she was resting, but they were very lucky that she took a little less food than she could eat. Otherwise, they would have lost her. Lacus asked if they had found whoever did it yet. The emperor replied that they had checked every dish and every piece of cutlery. They questioned all the workers who cooked and set the table, but nothing is known yet. Lacus said it was too bad, and His Majesty added that that was why he had called him to ask him to investigate the matter. The ruler said he had received his letter, in which Lacus wrote that he planned to join the Imperial Palace Assembly. The man added that no one else would help him like he did. Duke Lacus asked the emperor if he was sure he could entrust such an important matter to someone who only knew how to swing a sword. His Majesty replied that only he could be impartial. The emperor said that Lacus already knew that he had not yet decided on a successor. The empress and empress consort constantly argue over this, and members of the aristocracy will inevitably be receptive to issues related to the future emperor, so their decisions will be based only on their personal benefit. Lacus wondered why His Majesty didn't choose his successor if he understood everything. The emperor told the duke that he needed a man like him. His Majesty added that now he was simply asking for help, but if the duke refused, he would have to make it in order. Lacus replied that he would be happy to help. After all, his task is to serve the emperor. The duke promised His Majesty to do everything in his power. The emperor told Lacus that his father would be proud of him. Lacus decided that first he needed to meet his accomplice. Penelope informed Princess Alexandra that the Duke of Ornis wished to thank her for his past hospitality. Princess Alexandra asked Duke Lacus how he managed to get into her palace. Lacus replied that this time he was smarter than her. After all, while she was thinking about how to arrange a meeting with him, he came to her by himself. The Duke said that he was lucky enough to get a room in the Imperial Palace not far from the Gen Palace. Therefore, when he saw her maid, he immediately asked to take him to her. Alexandra said that they need to figure out how to communicate in the future. Lacus suggested exchanging letters through her maid, as he assumed they knew of her plans. The princess said he was wrong because she didn't trust them that much yet. Herzog said she was even smarter than he thought. He then asked Alexandra when she planned to tell the servant about her plans. The girl replied that so far she is not so confident in the people around her. Besides, she still hasn't found a person she can trust. Lacus asked, and how about him, but smiled sweetly. The princess said she meant a woman. Sandra knew that in the future she would save a girl she could trust. The Duke thought about it and said that from their first meeting he thought she knew the future. The girl replied that then she would not have made the wrong choice. If she really knew the future, she wouldn't have done what she regrets. Lacus said that life would not be interesting if one knew one's future. The girl replied that he would not have said that if he had experienced something terrible. Herzog said he didn't know her well enough to contradict her, but Lacus asked her not to act as if she knew very well what he had been through. If she knew all the horrible details about other people's lives, she wouldn't say that. For example, for him, his past is as painful as if his skin had been peeled off. And if she found out, she might have said that her past wasn't so terrible. Likewise, he may not understand how difficult it was for her. Therefore, the Duke asked the princess not to judge other people because she herself had experienced something terrible. Alexandra bowed her head and answered that she understood everything. Then the Duke smiled and said that they were out of business, and offered to pass the letters through the library. The girl said that in the 9th bookcase of row P, there is a pink book on the 6th shelf from above. There is only one pink book, so it will be easy for him to find it. Lacus said she knew the Imperial Palace pretty well for someone who had been here for no more than a month. The princess replied that she did not know the palace very well. She added that it was simply the only book she had read in the last month. In fact, it was her only book in the last 6 years. The Duke said he would visit the library every Monday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then the girl said that she would go there at the same time, only on Wednesday. Lacus smiled and Princess Alexandra asked why he had come to the Imperial Palace in the first place. The Duke replied that he had been invited by the Emperor. The young man said that he would investigate the attempt on the life of the Empress consort. Sandra said that she had thought that His Majesty would entrust this matter to him. She added that the Emperor could rely only on him in this situation, because others would not be sincere. The girl asked the Duke if he could help the Emperor. Lacus replied that he could find the killer only if she helped him, because he was a stranger here. He asked what happened at breakfast when Empress Vincentia was poisoned. Alexandra said that they were talking, and then the Empress started coughing up blood and fell to the floor. Court doctors came and informed the Emperor that it was poisoning. The Emperor became angry, and Vincentia's maids carried her into the room. Empress Thelsia ordered her maids to thoroughly clean everything in the hall where the meal was held. Lacus abruptly stopped her story and asked which of the empresses she would choose. Alexandra said that she did not understand his question. Herzog explained that since ancient times, people have united in order to overthrow their common enemy, because this is much more effective. And because she wants to make the third prince emperor, she will have to unite with one of the empresses in order to remove the other. After that, she will be able to fight with the person with whom she united. After all, her current position does not allow her to fight 2 empresses at the same time. That's why Lacus asked who she would choose, Empress Thelsia or Empress Consort Vincentia. Alexandra said that he himself knows, because he has his own opinion on this matter. Lacus replied that his opinion was not so important, because he was only her partner in crime. The princess said that she would unite with Empress Thelsia. First, she herself wants to remove Empress Vincentia, and she will do it, despite the fact that everyone will be even more careful after this attempt. Second, the Empress Consort Vincentia, mother of the first prince, who by the rules should be in line to the throne, but the decision is still up to the Emperor. Alexandra asked the Duke why he interrupted her story. Lacus replied that the further course of their conversation depended on her decision. Then he returned to that breakfast. The Duke reminded the princess that Empress Thelsia had ordered her maid to clean the hall after the incident, so no one knew if there was any evidence of her involvement in the poisoning. Princess Alexandra said that the Empress is very intelligent, so she adapts very well to the situation. Lacus added that every person has flaws, and Empress Thelsia has a weakness for flattery, because she likes to dress well and takes care of her appearance, because she occupies a high position in society. Alexandra said it was the only thing they could use against her. Lacus asked if she was up to the task. Sandra replied that this is her revenge and he is her assistant. Duke Lacus said that there must be mutual concessions in their relationship, because he also has reasons to seek revenge. After all, for the past 12 years, he wants revenge. The young man admitted that he despises the Emperor and Empress, so he wants to seize the throne. The girl asked why they did not please him so much. Lacus said that he would definitely tell her everything, but only after he heard why she hated her husband so much. He added that it was she who proposed to the prince. The Duke told the princess that he did not understand why she despised her husband, if it was natural to love him. Alexandra replied that it was not yet time to tell about it. Duke Lakis said he felt the same way because such a thing as trust doesn't happen overnight. But Princess Alexandra said that she trusted him. The young man asked why she said that. After all, he thought that she did not want to talk about her hatred of the third prince because they had not yet known each other long enough. Sandra replied that it was not related to trusting him. This is related to her personal life, so she needs time. Lakis then asked why she trusted him. Lexi told Duke that she trusted him 80%, because he doesn't seem like the kind of person who would betray her after she said she would make him emperor. Duke Lakis asked if she was afraid that he might trick her and kill her when he got his way. Alexandra replied that this is exactly why she wants to become empress. The girl said that she thinks that he will not betray her. Lakis replied that it was, but it was not because of any personal reasons or her social status. In fact, he fears that they will learn many of each other's secrets and be able to reveal them if one of them betrays them. The princess said that would not be right. After all, each of them put a lot at stake. Therefore, the girl assured the Duke that she was not going to betray him for some selfish reasons. Duke Lakis then suggested to Princess Alexandra that they should not doubt each other over the little things, because they had one common goal to focus on. The princess agreed that it was the most important thing now. Sandra added that he wouldn't admit it if he planned to take the throne and dump her, because he is one of those who does not warn his enemies. Lakis said that their relationship is very interesting, and added that he would never have thought that they would be able to trust each other so much. Lexi asked if he trusted her. The Duke replied that he trusted her 80% and smiled. Princess Alexandra said they were just wasting their time with meaningless chatter. Her Highness asked the Duke of Ornis to quickly find the thief who tried to kill the Empress consort Vincentia. The Duke replied that he would try very hard. Duke Lakis sprung into action immediately after being commissioned by the Emperor to investigate the case. Everyone around said that His Majesty made the right choice. At the same time, everything pointed to Empress Telsia. She herself did not admit her guilt. She said that if she wanted to kill someone, it would definitely not be in such a senseless way. Telsia asked Duke Ornuski why he brought people in uniform to her room. The Duke apologized and said he was following His Majesty's orders. The Empress said he was trying to portray her as a horrible woman who wanted to kill the Empress consort. Lakis replied that he was just investigating. Therefore, for this, you need to inspect her room. The Duke explained that as soon as the Empress Vincentia was taken away, Her Majesty ordered her maids to clean everything thoroughly. And this was the only evidence that could help in the investigation of this case. Telsia was furious with herself. All she wanted then was to see no more blood. When the Empress's room was searched and nothing was found, Duke Lakis apologized to Her Majesty for troubling her, and said he was glad there would be no more accusations against her. It seemed to Lakis that Empress Telsia was not to blame in this case, judging by her behavior. Although she would not be against remaining the only empress in the palace. The next day, Empress Telsia's maid shocked Her Majesty with the news that a witness had appeared. One of her maids confessed that she had poisoned Empress Vincentia on her orders. Telsia became very angry and thought that Vincentia had specially bribed her maid to take the poisoned food herself, but in such a quantity that she would not die. And since the Empress consort knew that Telsia did not like mess, she was sure that she would immediately order the maids to remove everything, even important evidence. The Duke of Ornis came to Her Majesty with soldiers. She asked who testified against her. Lakis replied that it didn't matter. He added that the Emperor is angry, and her position is not to be envied now. Telsia replied that she was well aware of it herself, and asked if she would be detained. Duke Lakis said that he had great respect for Her Majesty, and the Emperor ordered her to be placed under house arrest. The Duke asked the Empress to endure these inconveniences until she was found innocent. Telsia sat in her room and contemplated that she had shed so much blood to rise to the top of the empire, and now she would end her life so senselessly. When the maid brought her dinner, Telsia asked that the third prince's wife be called to her. Alexandra was not surprised because she needed someone to help. Empress Telsia asked the girl to sit next to her, and told her that she did not do what she was accused of. Alexandra said that she believed Her Majesty. The princess told the Empress that Her Majesty had everything one could dream of, so she would not do such a thing. Telsia replied that Prince Cleo was very lucky with his wife. Princess Alexandra asked if she could help her with anything. Telsia said that if she proved her innocence, all the false accusations against her would simply disappear. But Empress Telsia added that then Princess Alexandra would make the Empress consort her enemy, because she believes that she herself organized the attempt on her life. Telsia asked the girl who she chose, her or Vincentia. Alexandra replied that she had already made her choice when she came here to her room. Telsia then asked the princess to say at the soon-to-be trial that she had seen the maid add poison to Vincentia's plate at her command. The empress asked the girl what she wanted as thanks for her testimony. Alexandra replied that it would be enough for her that the false accusations be removed from Her Majesty. Telsia said that she is very kind, but such people do not survive in the palace, so she must have some wishes. The girl replied that she had them, but she just wanted to help. The empress added that she was used to thanking people for their help, so her reward would await the princess in the future. She then asked her to leave so as not to arouse suspicion. Alexandra thanked Her Majesty and left. As she walked down the hall, Sandra smiled and asked herself if she would succeed in what she set out to do.